Hi, we're going to start learning about VBA macros by recording some simple macros. We're going to start by doing some tasks that are incredibly simple, like just changing the format of a cell. We're going to make it bold, italicized, change the font. Along with recording a macro, we'll see a couple of the ways that you can run a macro. To get started though, we're going to open up our file, Excel VBA 1000 exercises. Now we're going to cover this in a little more detail, but a lot of times when you open a workbook in Excel that has macros, you'll get a warning message right here. Security warning that macros have been disabled. We'll talk about that a little bit more in another lesson, but for now we're just going to click the Enable Content button, and that will allow our workbook to open and let us do macros. Okay, now that we're on our initial workbook, we're going to go to the worksheet that says Record a Macro, and we're already on it. Then we want to select the cell B5 that contains the text Hello World. What we're going to do is use Excel's macro recorder. And what that is, it's basically like a cassette tape player that lets you just record steps you'd normally do, and then Excel will play those back at a later time. So to get to the macros, there's several ways to get to the macro recorder. We're going to go up to our ribbon, and it's on the View ribbon. Go over to our Macros button, click Macros, and then we're going to go to Record Macro. Now in this screen we got to fill in a few things in the dialog box that came up. The first thing we have to do is give our macro a name. And for this macro, we're simply going to call it Simple Format. Now there are some naming rules for macros. Basically, you just want to use numbers and letters, and you can't have any spaces in a macro name. They get a little bit more detailed, but we won't worry about that right now. The next is a shortcut key box, and that is where we can assign a shortcut key to run the macro later. For now, we'll just type in an M there, so it'll be Control plus M will run this. And then the next section here is store the macro in. We're going to keep the macro in this workbook, and that means anytime we want to use this macro, we'll have to use this workbook. Description is kind of more for commenting, and that's good to put in, so we'll just type a little something here. Okay, and then we'll click OK. Well, now Excel is recording our macro, and everything we do will be recorded. So let's go back to the Home ribbon, and let's do some things to change this. Let's make it bold. Let's make the text italics. Let's change the font to a different font. I'll click this button here, and I'm going to choose, I think Comic Sans is kind of fun. So I'll choose Comic Sans, and I'm also going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it size 14 points. Lastly, I'm going to add a red border to the bottom of the cell. For this, I'll right click on it and choose my Format Cells option, and I will go to Borders, click Red, make it thick, and put it on the bottom, and then click OK. Well, now I've done about all I want to do with my macro, so I'm going to stop recording it. I'll go to the View menu, go over to my Macros button, and click Stop Recording. Now that we've recorded this macro, let's say we want to apply this formatting to another cell, maybe this one down here in B10 that says "See, it really works." So let's just go find a way to run that macro on that cell again. Okay, we'll go to our Views ribbon, go to Macros, go to View Macros, and now you see the name of our macro comes up. Any macros we've written will be in this list. We'll click Simple Format and click Run. And there you have it. It changed everything to make it the exact same as our other format. Okay? Now one drawback to macros is that you can't undo them. Because they're a series of programmatic commands, the undo feature does not work. So you have to be really careful and test your macros when you work with them. Well, we did the View menu to run a macro. Let's try that keyboard shortcut. I'm going to click on B15 and do Control M because we assigned that keyboard shortcut to the macro. And that's yet one more way to run our macro.